Greetings and welcome to Zachary Carter TV. Today we're going to discuss, is Ryan Garcia an elite fighter in light of his performance against Oscar Duerte? All right, let's get down to it. So I want to start this conversation off with a concept that I like to call the triad of performance. This is not a term that I coined. It's a term that a gentleman named Zach T-Lander coined. He uses this term to measure the performance of martial artists. The triad of performance, you have three sides of the triangle. On one side, you have the physiology, which is, of course, your strength, your speed, your explosiveness, your endurance, your power, foot speed, hand speed, reaction time. So you get the idea. One side is your physiology. The second side of the triangle is your technique, your specificity. I believe that's what he calls it, which is your skill. So that's self-explanatory. And then the last side that a lot of people does not take into consideration, but which is very important, which is very underrated, is your psychology. So your psychology is your character. You know, are you disciplined? Are you going to come to the gym every day? Are you going to get up at 5 in the morning and go do your road work? Are you going to be disciplined and not get overweight so you can make weight? All of that, your psychology is very important. Are you tough enough? Do you have grit? If you get knocked down, are you going to be strong enough mentally to get back up and then go back into the fire? So those are the three sides of the triangle, the triad of performance. How does this relate to the question, is Ryan Garcia an elite fighter? That's what we're talking about today. That's what we want to discuss today and come to a conclusion. Is Ryan Garcia an elite fighter? I would like your comments. I would like your opinions. Leave them in the comments section. Let me know if you think that Ryan Garcia is an elite fighter. Let's begin with the first part of the triad of performance, which is the physiology. Ryan Garcia has good size for the weight class. He's listed on the box rep. That's 5'8.5". That's pretty good size for the weight class. Has good size. He's a big dude. When I watched him in his last fight against Duarte, Ryan Garcia is very explosive. He's an extremely explosive fighter. That's one of his best assets is his explosiveness. He could get on and off the line quickly. He has very fast hands. He has quick hands. I say elite level hand speed, elite level explosiveness, which translates into power, especially in his left hand, especially with his left hook. Ryan Garcia is a very explosive, very powerful, very quick, fast, twitchy type of boxer. It's hard to deal with. So I would think from one side of the triangle, at least from the physiology side of the triangle, is Ryan Garcia an elite boxer? I would have to say in that side, yes, he's an elite boxer. Let's talk about the second side of the triangle, specificity, his technique, his skill level. Ryan Garcia has skills, but is undisciplined. Ryan Garcia has lots of skills, but he's undisciplined. I mean, looking back on the fight, I'm watching it right now. His feet is all over the place. His footwork is not disciplined. It's not that he can't do it. It's just that he's not disciplined. I believe he relies on his physiology a lot. I think he relies on his physical ability and his physical talent. He's not as disciplined in his skill that he should be. He's constantly crossing his feet. He's walking forward and backwards. He's just not being disciplined in his footwork. Like I say, I think he relies more on his physical talent than being disciplined. I'm sure his coach, Derrick James, is trying to get him to be more disciplined and fight with more skill and not necessarily fighting behind his prodigious talent that he has. That's his footwork. Now let's talking about that shoulder roll that he employed, which I know the commentators was really getting on his case for employing this shoulder roll when clearly he does not practice it. Clearly Derrick James does not teach the shoulder roll. I'm sure they did not work on a shoulder roll. However, Ryan Garcia decided to deploy the shoulder roll in his fight against Duarte. Now, I wasn't so critical of Ryan Garcia in employing the shoulder roll in this instance because I actually believe the shoulder roll was fairly effective against Duarte, at least against what Duarte was trying to do. I believe the shoulder roll was an effective tool that you should utilize. The problem with it is clearly Garcia does not practice the shoulder roll. He looked at very funky in employing it. However, it was effective. The shoulder roll was fairly effective. It just was funky the way he employed it. He wasn't confident enough to settle down in the shoulder roll. He wasn't smooth with it. He didn't use his eyes. He was overly anxious while employing the shoulder roll. So oftentimes he turned his back toward his opponent, which is illegal. And he was ducking when he shouldn't have been ducking. He should have just been very calm. He should have been using his eyes to see where the punch is coming. You know, you use your eyes, you stay calm, you trust the technique. It's just that he wasn't really trusting the shoulder roll. He was employing it, but he wasn't necessarily trusting the technique. That comes from not practicing the shoulder roll, really working on it under pressure, especially doing sparring. If he would work on it doing sparring, I think he would settle in more. He would actually trust the technique of the shoulder roll, of the Philly shell, however you want to call it. The way he employed it, it was very funky. It looked weird. The commentators didn't make it any better because they haven't seen him really employ it before, and the way he was employing it, you know, I can understand where it was coming from. However, what they didn't recognize, it was actually effective against Duarte. It was a good adjustment. I do. I think it was a good adjustment. It's just, it was incomplete. It was incomplete. All right. So again, with his physical ability, coupled with his skill work, he was able to get Duarte out of there. In the 8th round, he caught Duarte coming in with a check hook, which hurt him. And then he was able to finish Duarte off with a flurry of punches. Duarte didn't beat the count, which I believe was the right call. The ref was in his face counting. He tried to pop up at 10, which you can't do that. You have to be up, showing the referee that you're ready to fight at 10. You don't pop up at 10. It was absolute the right call. So let's talk about the knockout sequence, okay? One thing about Duarte is he can never close the gap effectively. He was never really efficient in closing the gap. He didn't close the gap coming behind his jab. I mean, if you want to close the gap, if you want to get on the line. Boxing is the manipulation of distance and timing to control the line. When you're on the line, you're punching. When you're on the line, you're close enough to punch. Of course, when you're close enough to punch, your opponent is close enough to punch you. So boxing is the manipulation of distance and timing to safely get on the line. So to get on the line without getting punched, to land your shots. Or if you're a counter puncher, you will allow your opponent to get on the line so you could counter punch. You kind of time him as he getting on the line. I call it intercepting fist. Or you allow your opponent to get on the line, punch where you counter. You slip and counter, you cross counter, same time counter, delayed counter, stuff like that. Oscar Duarte was not efficient on getting on the line behind his jab. He was not efficient in closing the gap effectively. So on the last sequence where Ryan Garcia was able to hit him with the check hook, Duarte kind of barreled in on the line, and it was easy for Garcia to time him because Duarte was very straightforward. He never feinted. He didn't show any type of misdirection. He just barreled straight ahead onto the line, and it was easy for Ryan Garcia to step back, hit the check hook, hurt Duarte, step off the line, hit him with a flurry of punches, turn him around, get him to the ropes, and finish him off with another flurry of punches, dropping him. The referee, like I say, did his count and counted him out. It was a good performance by Garcia skill-wise, but it wasn't necessarily a high-level performance in this case because Duarte made it very easy for Garcia to execute that sequence. That is the first two sides of the triad of performance. Now let's talk about the last side, the psychology side, the most underrated side of the triad of performance. Watching this fight, I have to say Garcia was in very good shape. He was in very good condition. That tells me that he was disciplined enough to go out there and do the work. I mean, he was able to do the work and he did his road work. He was in the gym. He took his training very serious. Hats off to Derrick James for being a mentor to the young man. He was prepared for the fight. He was prepared to go 12 rounds. He did not look fatigued to me. In between every round, he stood up. There were things that I didn't particularly care for. Again, when he felt threatened, when he felt a little bit of pressure, he went to a technique that clearly he didn't work on. At least him or his trainer worked on. It's not a great look that he wasn't disciplined in following the game plan. Sometimes you gotta make adjustments to the game plan. Granted, it seems like he was just skittish. It might have been perception, but it's just what I seen. Okay, so Ryan Garcia, as far as again the psychology part of the triad of performance for a combat athlete, he seems to always be into it with the people that's around him. You know, he was into it with the Canelo, the Reynosos camp. He got into it with Joe Goosen. He's into it with Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya. Like I say, he's just always seemed to be into it. Seems like he's leading a chaotic life. And it just might be the way he has to operate to get himself up for a fight. He has achieved a high level of monetary success. From what I understand, in this fight against Tank Davis, he made $30 million. That's success. I mean, he doesn't have to fight anymore in his life. Is Ryan Garcia an elite level fighter? Well, let's look who are the elite level fighters in his weight class. Let's go to the Ring magazine and let's check out the junior welterweight division. Would I favor Ryan Garcia over Teofimo Lopez? No, I would not favor Ryan Garcia over Teofimo Lopez. I would not. Would I favor Ryan Garcia over Josh Taylor? No. How about Regis Prograis and Devin Haney? Would I favor Garcia over one of those two? No. Would I favor Ryan Garcia over Subriel Maties? That matchup would be a total nightmare. Would for sure be destroyed by Subriel Maties. It's just a total nightmare. At the end of the fight, Ryan Garcia called out Rolly Romero. Rolly has a belt, so I mean, makes sense. And that is the level where I believe Ryan Garcia operates at. I would favorite Garcia over Rolly Romero. But what about Hitchison, Catterall, Barboza, Russell, Martin, and Sims? Gary Antuanne Russell, that would be a damn good fight. I don't know if I favor Garcia over Russell. And Kenneth Sims Jr. Kenneth Sims Jr. is a very smart fighter. He really is. He's a very smart fighter, very tough-minded fighter. I don't know if I would favor Garcia over Kenneth Sims Jr. So I guess that answers the question. Is Ryan Garcia an elite level fighter? So the answer would have to be no. If I can't definitively favor Garcia over Gary Antuanne Russell or Kenneth Sims Jr. or Richardson Hitchens, if I can't definitively favor Garcia over those three fighters, and those are very good fighters, but are they at the elite of the division? I would say no, they're not the elite of the division. Therefore, Ryan Garcia is not an elite 140 pounder. He's a prospect, and he's good enough to get a belt. He's good enough to beat Rolly Romero and get a belt and fight for a world championship and possibly have favorable matchups where he could take advantage of, and he has the talent to be able to do that, to position himself as a champion given the right matchup. Again, would he beat Teofimo Lopez? No. Would he beat Josh Taylor? No. Would he beat Regis Prograis or Devin Haney? I don't believe so. How about Jose Ramirez? No. What about Subriel Maties? He would get destroyed by Subriel Maties. The answer is no. Ryan Garcia is not an elite level 140 pounder. He is not. Could he grow into it? His training, hopefully the pairing of him and Derrick James is a very successful pairing. I'm looking forward to him because I believe he's very good for boxing. He brings a lot of elements to boxing. He brings a lot of new fans to boxing, a lot of younger fans to boxing. I'm rooting for Ryan Garcia. I'm a fan of Ryan Garcia. I'm hoping he does well, and let's see what the future holds. Let me know in the comments whether you believe Ryan Garcia is an elite level fighter. What do you think his future holds? Thank you for joining me today for Zachary Carter TV. We're out.